Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Stepping Up by me, Kindar, the Tiger Right, and Ty, the Tiger's Supervisor. Today we are doing Chapter 81. Tibs grunted as his ice shield took the fist. He felt the impact all the way to his feet and ice fell off, but he kept it whole. You okay? You know what? Are you okay? Yeah. I don't know, wait. You okay? He asked the cleric, who pushed himself to his feet using his staff. The blow took me unawares. It will not happen again. Will you two move? Mez yelled as a series of small explosions caused the brute to stagger back. I can't use anything bigger with you so close. Keeping his shield between the brute and them, Tibs backed away along with Commodore. The explosions slowed as the distance increased, but their intensity. The distance grew, but their intensities increased. A glance to the side showed him Karina, keeping the other brute from moving closer to Jackal and bigger brute. The stone creature had cuts all over its surface, but none were as deep as the last time they fought the boss creatures. He raised a foot to step forward, and he felt the air essence accumulate under as it brought it down and exploded. It barely caused any damage, but it staggered back. There's a lot of it. But the brute staggered back, effectively keeping it where it had been. Mez's exploding arrows also didn't have the effect they used to. Jekyll yelled happily as he pounded away on the bigger brute. The two rock beings punched each other to little visible effect, and Tibs wasn't sure Jackal was trying to destroy it. The explosion was large enough Tibs felt it around his shield. Finally! Mez snarled. A peek around the shield showed Tibs red-hot rubble, and he ran towards the brute, carrying a foot as it was able to put a foot down through the exploding air and move forward. While their need to get close to cause damage was a serious flaw in their creation, the brutes didn't get tired or have to worry about their reserve running low. Coming through! Tibs yelled as air buffeted him. He melted the shield and reformed the water into a sword. The wind died and Tibs slashed at the brute's leg. The cut wasn't as deep for him either, still it increased their overall resistance to the elements. He rolled out of the way of the coming fist and coated the ground with ice, but the brute didn't chase him. Stowe had also changed how they fought. That had been Tibbs's biggest problem with the fight. He'd expected the brutes to do as they'd done before, chase whoever was the closest until they could move towards the bigger brute to heal it. Then, getting them to slip on his ice was simple. He could hit them with minimal risk to himself while they got back up until they couldn't anymore. Stowe said they weren't alive, so Tibs didn't know if their actions were them adapting to all the fights they had gone through, or if Stowe simply added new reaction to them. Remain down, Commodore instructed, sounding too far to help, but Tibs did so. A wave of darkness passed over him and impacted the brute, causing it to stagger and step on the ice as it attempted to keep its footing. As soon as it was on its back, Tibs sliced at it and added as many cuts as he could before it was standing again. Commodore joined in and got in a few piercing blows too. Step away, Karina called. They moved, and the ball of air that flew at the brute was so dense with whirling essence it was visible to the eyes. It exploded on contact, the air ripping into the cuts and breaks already there, sending stone flying away until there was nothing left of the brute. Karina was panting, hands on her knees. Mez wasn't out of breath, but the reserve on his bow was nearly depleted. Jackal, he called, you planning on ending your fight at any point? We can't get to the third floor until that. Are you guys done? Yes, Mez replied, then lowered his voice. He's showing off, isn't he? A fist with a bigger brute's chest, and then Jackal ripping it apart was the answer. I was waiting for you to be done, the fighter said, dusting his ends off with a grin. Of course you were, Kirina said, still panting. That's why you didn't end it before Maz called to you. You weren't even paying attention to our fight. I was kind of busy, Pickle replied without any bashfulness. He picked up the bracers from the rubble. They were leather and had stone and air essence weaved through them. A set of knives with an essence Tibs couldn't identify was within the rubble of the brute Kirina destroyed, and a red sorcerer's robe in Mez's. Stone grinding against stone announced the opening of the door in the far wall. And that's our stairwell to the third floor. Jekyll headed in its direction, and Tibs hurried to join him. The ornate chest on the left. The ornate chest was on the left before the stairs. I'll check it, Tibs said before Jackal could step toward it. But we won, the fighter protested, and such is how many great warriors die. Such is how many great warriors died. Gumdar pronounced. What he said, Mez added. Tibs searched for a lock and didn't find one. Then he looked for traps and found something. The left hinge had a pin connected to it through the spring mechanism that went through the hole in the chest. He'd never seen something like this, either in his own training or what he'd received when he was an Omega. He could work out that as the hinge moved, it would compress the spring until it released and struck the pin, which would, you couldn't know that part until you opened the chest, but not with the pin there. He made a small pick of ice and used that. He made small picks of ice and used one to move the pin out of the way and the other to pull the pin. To move the spring out of the way and the other to pull the pin out. He showed it to Jackal before gently opening the chest. Attached to the back was a crystal vial with a dark green mist in it. That's a lot of air packed in there, Kirina said. It wouldn't take much to make it explode. There's corruption there too. It was added and studied it more carefully. Also earth and other elements I can't identify. The pin would have cracked the vial, and the air would have sent the mix in the face of whoever opened the chest, he glared at Jackal. And you have to know it wouldn't be good for them, the fighter nodded thoughtfully. And you knew it was trapped? Pickles said, the accusation clear. No, Tibs replied and kept the rest to answering the archer. I'm a rogue. I survive by not taking for granted that winning means I'm safe, and Stowe's always changing things. He knows how overconfident Jackal is. So it's why I've made sure to check all the chests before him. Or did you forget that? Couldn't keep his anger from slipping through. I'm just surprised this is the first time it's happened. Once they were done with the run, he was letting Mez have it. I'm guessing he either didn't think of it until now or didn't want to put too many problems until we were able to deal with the rest. A bit of both, Stowe said. Tibs sensed the essence within the vial and had an idea. Jekyll, I'm going to try something with Earth. I don't think now's the time to channel an element you haven't practiced, Tibs. Now's the perfect time, Tibs replied. Stowe's the only one I can damage if something goes wrong, but Earth shouldn't cause that, and I'm not going to channel him. I can sense the essence, so I want to see if I can manipulate them without channeling the element. Haven't you tried that before? Kirina asked. Tibs shook his head. Other than my training with Alistair, I haven't done any work with elements since we were waiting to make sure I had water under control. The only time I'd manipulated essence is to refill my reserve, but they're all full, except for my core one, and I'm not risking hurting anyone to fill that. He placed a finger on the crystal container. If I can get this to work, it'll give me more versatility in fights, but I'm also trying it with earth instead of corruption because I'm easier to talk to into letting go. Because I'm easier to talk into letting him go if I end up channeling him in the process. Found a strand of earth essence in the mix within the vial and mentally took hold of it. He stopped as he felt his hold over water slip. His reflex was to channel what he manipulated. He tried again. Alistair taught him to split his attention as part of his training, and this shouldn't be any more different. It shouldn't be different. Other than he was splitting it between two elements rather than the two conditions of the same element. The earth essence within the vial responded to his pull and he smiled. He pulled everything that was inside into a tiny pebble. Now, could he work with more? He reached for the earth essence into the wall and pulled some over the vial. The crystal became dirty with dirt. Let's go brown with dirt. Then earth grew over it, and Tibs made that stone. He sighed. Still you? Jekyll asked. I'm always me. Doing this had left Tibs more tired than he'd expected, but now didn't have he didn't have to worry about needing to act on another element in a small way. Oh boy. Doing this had left Tibs more tired than he expected, but now he didn't have to worry about switching to another element. Needed in small ways. Doing this had left Tibs more tired than he expected. But now he didn't have to worry about switching to another element when he needed to affect it in small ways. It should also mean he could pull from his bracers, but he didn't want to try that. He used water to break the ties holding the now rock-covered crystal vial and pocketed it. He couldn't tell if the vial broke in the process. That didn't matter. The stone would keep the gas from escaping. Tibs? Stowe said as he moved to let Jekyll access the chest. Yes? That's mine? Tibs smiled. Not anymore. Think of it as another reward from the chest. No, maybe. Jekyll mumbled as he pulled items out. 2 sets of nice clothing, but without essence. The maybe was a pair of leather boots. He eyed them. They had air woven through. Anyone need amulets? He set down 2. Then a crystal bottle containing a yellow liquid. This is different. Jekyll studied the set of 2 leather bands as Tibs picked up the bottle. Tibs, look. Jekyll placed the leather strips over his fist, and they had metal knobs where they went over his knuckles. I really wish that hadn't made it into this chest, Stowe said. What's in it? Mez asked as Tibs sensed the composition. Was that? I don't know. I think it's essence, but I've never felt something like this. Oh. I have no idea what this is. What is that doing there? Okay. Because if it's air, he knows this. He can sense that. So, what was I going for? No, if I can't remember, it's not that important. Especially since that was written, what, last week? What's in it? Is ask. Tibs sense the composition. Air. You can come back if I ever look at it. Other essences. Apart. Don't know. The guild is sure to know. Oh, no, I can't. Okay, all right, I'm going back. Okay. I know the mistake I made. Because the composition of was in the vial. But yeah, the vial is what he's studying. That's okay. Now I know where I was going with this. Because that, okay, now I know what that is. I don't know. I think it's essence, but I've never felt something like this. All right. The guild is sure to know what it is, Condor said, as Mez turned so Tibs could put the bottle in the pack. A boom had Tibs on his guard, making a sword as he turned in Jekyll's direction. The fighter moved his fist from the wall where cracks were spreading. You guys mind if I keep that? We just use them, Mez said, which means we don't have much of a choice. Right, sorry. I just wanted to see if they did more than protect my knuckles. They go boom, Karina said, putting the amulets in Commodor's pack. That was air detonating on impact. Like he isn't already strong enough, and he commented. You're the one who said it all had to be random. Still replied, I prefer you get that, then you give them whatever Tibs asks for. Down we go? Mez asked, heading for the stairs. Anything else on them? Jekyll asked, stepping next to Tibs. Tibs nodded, but I can't tell what they are. Metal would make them harder, Dar said. There should be someone at the guild who can tell you more about them, Tina said. Jekyll scoffed. I'm not giving them any more of my coins. They go boom, and that's plenty for me. They joined Mez at the bottom of the stairs. Tibs glanced at the junction before them, then went to the alcove next to the stairs, where he sensed the doorway. He activated it and looked at the bridge over the pool. We can come down to the third floor directly, he announced. That's a lot of loot we'll be missing, Jekyll commented. This floor will have better loot, I said, although I'm not sure how this will work. Tibs looked at where they were meant to go. The hall had a dozen paces of roughly curved floor and walls which reminded Tibs of Still's entrance in the early days. Then it split into three. Are we supposed to split up? He asked. His friends looked at him questioningly. Asking you still doesn't give that help. It doesn't give that kind of help anymore. Kenny let out a bark of laughter. So you're done tricking me, Tibs stated, and Toe smiled. If this is about splitting up, Karina said, I feel there should be 5 options, not 3. Then it's about picking the right one. They've studied the junction from where he stood. I'm not seeing anything that would let a wall slide down to block the way, so we can turn around if the one we pick doesn't go anywhere. But the dungeon can just close it anyway, Miz said. It doesn't need actual door. It doesn't make changes to a room while we're in it, Rina pointed out. But is this a room? Commodore asked. Are we certain that the rules are what the rules are for hallways? As has been demonstrated, the rules are not always what we believe them to be. The dungeon said it doesn't make changes. Jekyll said. Mez snorted. Right, and do we know it was honest? Yes, Stowe replied. He's got no reason to lie, Tibs said, although he didn't think the jab at honesty was aimed at Stowe. The rules are there for everyone. I think we'd have noticed by now if he lied about what he does. Remember, the dungeon is here to make us stronger, Kira said. There have to be rules for runners to work out. I think Commodore's right. Here, the challenges might be working out what those rules are in relation to what is a hall, what is a room, and what else there might be. If the rules are always the same. Whatever it is, Jekyll said, we aren't going to figure it out standing here. Let's pick one and move. Before anyone could comment, the fighter headed to the central hall. Jekyll! Kieran and Tibs called it after the fighter. Then, when he didn't slow or anything happened, Tibs ran to catch up. With a huff of exasperation, Kieran joined them, followed by Mez and Commodore. The uneven floor and wall continued. Even the lighting was more like when Tibs was Omega, with torches causing the shadows to dance instead of the lights of the lightstone. The passage width varied, as did the direction they went in. After a few minutes, they reached an intersection. The corridor they were in bent to the right, while the section jutted to the left. Is the goal to have us die of boredom? Jekyll asked, peering into the left junction. Or hunger, Mez said. If we get lost, that could become a problem. Jekyll placed a hand on the wall. We won't get lost. There's stone essence in everything, so I can remember the way we take. What can you tell of what's ahead, Tibs? Irina asked. Not much. They've sense ahead of them. Kenny knows I can do this, so there's essence everywhere. It's denser in places, and that might be a creature, but I'm too far to be sure. So we need to make a decision then again, he said, looking at one junction, then the other. I think Mez is right. This will be a maze. Then we go that way. Jekyll stepped into the right turn and froze as something clicked under his foot. He turned to stone as everyone moved away from him. Nothing happened, and Tibs looked for anything that could be part of a trap trigger activated. I believe, Kamar said, that we are being confronted with one of those potential rules. If there are no distinction between rooms and halls on this floor, then traps could be anywhere. With the trigger still not having activated something else, Tibs went to Jekyll and studied the area around his foot. The roughness and unevenness of the floor made noticing it harder, but there was a tile there. He poured water over it. The mechanism under was complex, but didn't seem to go anywhere. think this one's a decoy. He iced it in place. Maybe it warns the creatures we've arrived, as asked, holding his bow at the ready. If sensed, but he couldn't make out any essence filament among the essence saturating everything. Couldn't make out an essence filament from the saturation. And the denser spot hadn't moved, at least. Maybe those were decoys too. Pickles raised his foot, then Tibs takes the lead again. Looking for traps along this would slow them down. If Stowe had made the floor, there would be a pattern Tibs could work out and use that to go faster, but he had no idea how Gany thought. He moved cautiously, searching for tiles. When he found one, he iced it. There was no point in trying to work out how they were set up this time. On the next run, he'd take the time since they wouldn't bother with the second floor. The easiest way would be for him to ice the entire floor, but Gany knew he could do that. Just like Stowe had come up with a way to make it problematic in the pool, he suspected Gany would make him pay for such a thoughtless approach. They reached another branching of two paths. Them like a V ahead of them. The trap tiles continued along both. The essence also felt saturated the same. We are going to die of hunger, Miss stated. We can go back, Tibs replied, stepping to the right branch and looking for something to tell him which was the right one. The doorway to the second floor is back there. Oh, sure. Unless the trigger fearless leader stepped on closed the path. Tibs opened his mouth, then closed it with a shrug. Without studying each trigger, he couldn't tell if one signaled behind them. He thought they should have felt a wall. They would have felt a wall coming down, but maybe there was a way to make that happen quietly. Locking us in doesn't seem right, he said. That has the feel of setting us up to die instead of challenging us. And how is walking around with just traps challenging anyone other than Tibs? There will be more, Condor said before Kirina could reply. Of that I am certain. Mayhaps this challenge is regarding maintaining our alertness? Hey, dungeon! Jekyll told the ceiling. Gany, Tibs corrected. It's her floor, so she's the one making the decisions. But this is still the dungeon, so it's the one doing all this. The fire motion around them. Jekyll, Jimmy said, when you want something at the inn, do you ask Joseph or his father for it? Jekyll opened his mouth, closed it, and thought. Okay, that's a good point. Gany, just a reminder that fighting is part of how we're supposed to be tested. Then he looked at Tibs. All right, she said, I will answer this one. There will be fighting, and when it happens, I don't want to hear any complaining about it. You're going to get your fighting. Tibs translated, possibly more than you want, even. Jekyll snorted. I will never get enough fighting. Is it too early to point out that this is the type of responses that has doomed entire adventuring parties? From Dart asked. And this ends chapter 81 of Stepping Up. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one is going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, you can do that for free on Royal Road. If you want to read ahead of Royal Road by a few weeks, you can do that on my Patreon and support me in the process. And if you want to listen to me do these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And with that, no, I keep messing you up today. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.